Well, hello, everyone. I am so happy that you are here. This is the moment we all been waiting for sure. He's an American marketer, an entrepreneur, a sought after speaker, and he is the author, I believe, of 19 books.
20. Ding,
So
ding, 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 ding.
I am so sorry.
That's okay.
20 books, and Tribes and Linchpin are his most popular ones. I want to introduce you to Seth Godin. He is here. Round of applause. I'm so appreciative. I've been a fan of yours forever and one day. So it's wonderful that you're here. I know you're going to add so much value to our audience today.
We'll
I
try.
wanted to talk. Yes, I'm just so excited. Let me calm down. Well, I was looking at 2020. 2020 was a year unprecedented for us Americans in a lot of ways. We have COVID-19 it's taken so many lives. We're seeing now police brutality on videos more and more. There's demonstrations. You name it. We're in flux. And it kind of reminds me of the 60s when I was growing up as a little child. My first question to you is, what pertinent themes do you see coming out of 2020 in which we can build tribes around? Let me take a step back and ask you to define tribes for people who, I don't know who they are, but folks who have not read your book on tribes.
So I wrote the book 10 or so years ago. I did not expect that it would be misused by trolls and people who would seek to hurt others. But of course, I'm describing a human condition, not inventing one. If you look at the Bible, the word tribes is mentioned more than 300 times. It long predates European conquest of North America. A tribe is just a natural grouping of people, a village, a bunch of people walking together through, the plains. And now, because the internet can connect us in so many different ways, the tribe of woodworkers who understand how to make a dovetail with the Japanese pull saw, that's a group of people. And I didn't invent them, and they would be there even if I didn't know they existed. But the magic of the internet is it connected them. Now, what are we going to do about that? Well, if you look at Facebook's failings, it fails when it starts to pit tribes against one another, when it starts to encourage the loudest, trolliest people to be heard. On the other hand, the magic of the internet is what happens when someone, a leader like you, is able to find her tribe and narrate for them and help them get somewhere. So it's really important, though, to accept that almost nobody has a tribe. I don't have one. What we have is the chance to show up for a tribe that would be there with or without us, and to connect people, to lead them, to make things better. And everywhere you look, there's interest groups, there are people who care, who would miss each other, and they are disconnected, and they need help from us to lead them.
Absolutely. I think one of the themes also for 2020 in handling COVID, for instance, is I hear about the growing isolation.
Right.
That so many people are experiencing now. And actually, I see a silver lining in that, in the sense that now we're isolated. We're not, going to the television set, into activism. We're forced to look at ourselves. And we're forced to start looking at what we value, what's important, and things of that nature. So I see tribes as being really, really important, especially in this season where we are not doing the things that we usually do.
Yeah. The pandemic's been so horrible. And to anyone who's been ill or who has lost a loved one, my heart goes out to you. The thing is that it required two things from humanity: patience and an understanding of statistics. And we're terrible at both of them. But it also led to some miracles. It led to the miracle that here I am talking to you right now, which would never have happened if we hadn't discovered that we can transcend time and space using the internet with people we want. On the flip side, it made some people into the victims of social media, because if you're not paying to use Twitter or Facebook, guess what? You're not the customer, you're the product. They're busy turning you into something they can sell to advertisers. You don't have to buy that if you don't want to. You don't have to be part of that if you don't want to. And the other thing that I think happened, long overdue, is finally we're paying much more attention to racial injustice and paying attention to how we can start leaning in to seeing what's been right in front of us for too long. And part of that happened because people weren't busy living their normal lives, and we reset how we paid attention. So for me, as someone who teaches people to be a leader, I think what we learn from this is you don't have to be a victim, and that you don't have to be alone. You can raise your hand and you can show up and you can decide to lead.
Yes, that's wonderful. Absolutely. And I think sometimes when I think about the 60s, I was a little girl, but I still remember, we had this emphasis on the leader, follow the leader, which was Martin Luther King and other people like that. But now I think these days is that we have to begin to realize the responsibility that we have to lead. I don't care if you're a parent. I don't care if you're a pastor. I don't care if you're running a Facebook group, you're an entrepreneur, but that onus is on us.
Yeah.
I think a little bit more now, and we need to take that responsibility much more seriously. We are the change that we're looking for in someone else.
Yeah.
And so I find that to be really, really interesting. And for most of the audience here, we run Facebook groups. Some of them, which is a tribe of sorts. Some of them have 500 in them, 1,500, 10,000. What suggestions would you give us, those who are running Facebook groups, to create a more cohesive and interactive group? And does do the numbers really matter?
Yeah, this is a great question. 3 words: kick people out. You can't have insiders if you don't have outsiders. And there is a misunderstanding in American culture that everyone is allowed to say anything they want, wherever they want, whenever they want. No, it's actually not true. You're allowed to say anything you want when you are criticizing the government in the public sphere. But if someone's in your house, they're not allowed to say whatever they want. We're here at the symphony. We're watching Beethoven. You're not allowed to start eating popcorn. Not allowed. It's just, you have to do that somewhere else. And so what it means to have a cohesive group is to say, people like us do things like this. Around here, this is how we engage with one another. That doesn't mean we all agree. It might be that we have rules for how we disagree. It might be that there's a food fight every Friday and people just scream and yell at you. Okay, that's how it's like around here. But over here, you're going to submit your complaints in writing because that's what things are like around here. But part of what we need to do is address not the biggest possible audience, but the smallest viable one. What's the smallest Facebook group you could have that would be worth having? Make those people feel like they're in the right place. Ignore everyone else, because then those people will bring in more people like them. And if we think about places we've been, groups we've been part of, they are inclusive in that we're not judging people by the color of their skin or how tall they are, or how they cut their hair, or whether they have hair or not. Those things don't matter. What matters is, are you people like us in the way you have chosen to take possibility, the way you've chosen to act? Because those are the house rules. And if you don't have house rules, it's hard for me to see how you can be a group.
Ooh, there's so much in what you said there. What you're basically saying, if I'm understanding it correctly, is that we have to take a stance and that we have to have the boundaries around our group to say how it's going to run. This is how we exist in this group, and let people decide. You're asking us to not be generalists maybe, or not to go out necessarily looking for the 10,000, but to be more focused on who we are and build connection with. If I have 1,000, to build connection with 1,000, to be caring about the 1,000, is to find ways to communicate with the 1,000, so that there's a real sense of community, and people, if they're interested in what I'm talking about, they're going to kind of connect to that and tell others. And I think that's really interesting also is because I think the whole idea, as I've been trained on how to manage and work Facebook groups, that is not how I've been trained. You're
Right,
saying
because that's what
something.
Facebook wants. Facebook just wants more people having more arguments and doing more clicking and seeing more ads. That's what their model is. But you
Mhm.
don't work for Facebook last time I checked.
Exactly, exactly. And the whole idea of the more people you have, the better opportunity you have to maybe sell your wares. So this is very very interesting because it is a little bit different from, like I said, my training. So I love it. I want to show you really quickly a slide. It is a quote from you, and I
Uh-oh.
want to and I want to spend a few minutes unpacking it if you don't mind.
Sure.
Let me, I love technology. Let's see here.
Why don't
Uh,
you could just read it to me if you want.
I'm trying to be fancy here, Seth. You're
Okay,
here.
sorry. Or post it in the comments. Then everyone can see it right on the screen. Oh, there we go. Boom.
Oh, right.
Right.
Yeah, I want to. Yeah, okay. I just want to master this, but I'm going to do this to make it bigger, okay, so I can
Okay.
see it. So we're talking about that people rarely believe what you show them. They often believe what their friends tell them. They always believe what they tell themselves. What leaders do is that they give people stories that can tell themselves, stories about the future and about change.
Right.
Um, so I did it. All right. My question to you is, how can we tell better stories as leaders um, to give future hope in a time? I think these are turbulent times. And as entrepreneurial leaders, how can we bring more hope and tell better stories?
So, have you ever been on a walkathon for a charity?
No,
But you know what I'm talking about.
sure.
Walkathons don't raise very much money for charities. So the question is, why do they have them? And the reason they have them is if you go on the walkathon and look around at all the other people who are on the walkathon, you realize you are the kind of person that supports a charity like this. It is now part of who you are, which is totally different than sending someone a letter about, the poor starving dogs that need your help or whatever it is. Because action needs to be justified. Once we do something, we make up a story about why we did it, not always the other way around. So part of what we're doing as leaders is not talking our story. We are both living our story and encouraging other people to live their story. And so when we teach people a formal way to engage with each other and require them to do it, suddenly it becomes part of their story. When folks are worried about where they are affiliated or where their status lies, if you can help them get to where they want to go on those measures, then they will see more of themselves in what you are doing. That what people want to do is say, I was right all along, not I was wrong and I changed my mind. So you've got to find the little threads of what they actually wanted and amplify them so that people can live those stories, which is what will bring them back again. It's about ritual, right? That there are lots of time-honored rituals in our culture. It was interesting. In March, I wrote a blog post about not shaking hands anymore. And it's hard to remember that was controversial, but it was. Why did we ever shake hands? Shaking hands was like invented to spread the cold. What function does it serve? Well, the reason we shake hands is we always used to shake hands. The reason we shake hands is our parents taught us to shake hands. We shake hands because that's who, quote, we are. And that idea of establishing culture, that's one of the jobs of the leader.
I love it. I will also want to touch on, I know I want to respect your time. We have a few more minutes. I wanted to ask you about the healing nature of being in a community, the healing nature of being in a tribe. I know that isolation, hey, it's nice. I mean, some of us are introverts. I know that as the older I get, the more I want time to myself to think and reflect and things of that nature. But I know that it can be devastating if we're doing it too long, when we're isolated, not really
Yep.
interacting with people. And especially during this time, during COVID, and this because we're in this tumultuous time. Can you talk a little bit about what you know about the healing aspects of being in a community once you find your group, and how important that is? Because I think sometimes people dismiss, or they could in the past, not so much anymore. They could in the past, they could easily dismiss the need for community.
So when I was 3, I fell on my elbow. Most 3-year-olds do. And the first thing you do is you look around to see if anyone that you love is nearby. And if no one is, you're back up on your feet. But if someone is, maybe you cry a little bit. And someone comes over, and even though you didn't get a cut, they put a Band-Aid on that elbow. And suddenly you feel better. Right? Why is that? Well, because we're complicated. We're not machines. And we need to be seen and felt and loved and understood. And we need to be heard. And so it's not an accident that Facebook has more than half the people on earth using it. It's a basic human need. The question is, how are we going to use that need to create healing opportunities and to make each other better, not to tear each other down by being a troll just for fun? Because that's a productive business model, but it's not a good way to live. And so as leaders, the people on this call have a chance to invent a different kind of culture that might not get as many page views, but is the kind of thing that's hard to replace.
Yes, yes. A place to be understood and welcomed, and I think supported. Because I believe, be honest with you, leaders are change makers, and change, Seth, is hard.
It is indeed.
And what I've learned from my past is that there's a lot of changes that needed to occur in my life, and I did as a pioneer. I did it on my own because I lacked the support, and I think it's 10 times harder.
Oh yeah.
To make a change when you don't have anyone's hand to hold.
Yeah.
To say that it's going to be all right. You're going to live through this kind of thing. And so I'm so big on community and working to try to create, a closeness to help people change. So I'm going to respect your time. We have a few minutes on the clock. And are there any other thoughts?
Well, if you don't mind, let's ask people to type into the comments. And if they got a question, I'm happy to answer it.
Oh my goodness. Hey guys, this is an opportunity to get your questions answered by Seth Godin. Start typing in questions. Hurry, hurry. Well, I want to tell you a lot of things. People are saying, awesome, I needed to hear this. I feel encouraged. Keeping the culture is our job. Action needs to be justified. They're quoting the things that we said. Our job as a leader is to create culture. You guys get to typing.
So, I mean, you have a lot of things you could have done today, but you showed up for this community. And I have a lot of things that I could do today, and I showed up for you because you're leading the community. And what we do is we get to weave possibility, that all of us are smarter than any of us, that each of us is able to show up in a way that doesn't work for everyone, but might work for someone, right? So, Jen's question, how do you best cultivate community early in business? So I was a bootstrapper for a really long time. I was struggling on the edge of bankruptcy for 8 years. I got thrown out of some of the fanciest offices in New York City. It's really hard. It's hard because when you're staring it in the face and you have to say to your family, it didn't work today and it might not ever work, that's hard, right? So we're tempted to do shortcuts. Go on Fiverr, get a gig, do whatever work you can get paid for. That's a mistake because it's not a shortcut. That's actually the longest way around. The shortcut is to do something that means something to someone. and engage with them around it. And so one of the things that I suggest to people early on is find 3 or 4 or 5 people who some people might call your competitors and invite them to join a weekly mastermind group. Find 5 people in a different industry who should know each other and don't. Invite them to join a group that you're going to coordinate, right? You show up and be the connector, and the next thing you know, you will be heard, and then you will be trusted. And once you are trusted, your business will grow.
Wow. Oh, I can unpack that. That is brilliance. I love that. I love that. I get my best creative ideas when I'm cross-pollinating with other people, other backgrounds and fields. You know, I'm talking to a doctor, or I'm talking to another teacher, or I'm talking to, and boy, that is just so rich. Carmilla has a question. She says, Seth, any new books you're working on? We'd love to hear about projects that you're working on now.
Oh, that's so kind of you. So this book came out, who knows where it is? Just 8 weeks ago, New York Times bestseller.
Okay.
And the workshop it's based on, well, here we go.
The practice.
And you can engage in the workshop that I built at akimbo.com. It's only open for signups for 5 more days. So if you see yourself as someone who wants to take your creativity up a notch, I hope you'll check out the Creators Workshop.
Nice.
There was a question here about how do we lead community without overextending ourselves emotionally? Because often people in community will come to the leader and try to get reassurance because life is hard. And in the new book, I have a whole set of essays about reassurance. And it's a little controversial, but this is what I believe. I believe reassurance is futile, that there is no amount of reassurance you can extend to somebody, because as soon as you go away, they're going to need more. Because reassurance is a promise about the future. You're saying everything is going to be okay, except it's not going to be okay. We have no clue if an asteroid is going to hit us next week. It's not helpful. What is helpful is to say to somebody, we hear you, we see you. There are people in this community, not me, who are ready to connect with you. And knowing that people have our back is different than telling people you will make everything okay, because that's a form of predicting the future that's impossible. So the magic of community, just to pick one off the top of my head, if you're a practicing Catholic, you can find other people in your community without calling the Pope. The Pope is not going to answer because it doesn't scale. And so that's the opportunity, is to invent the platform, but not do first aid on every single person.
Ooh, I love that. And that's an ongoing concept that I keep thinking about. How can I get them connecting with each other, while I try to run this, because otherwise you just kind of burn out, don't you?
Yeah.
Okay, let's see. Are there any other questions? I want to respect your time. We're 5 minutes over, Seth.
That's okay. Let's just do Ruth Ann's and then we'll wrap up.
Okay, Ruth Ann. She says, how can team leaders, managers recreate or maintain healthy culture for their teams that have now gone virtual? Great question.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the first toxic thing. Zoom meetings. Do not use them to take attendance. Do not use them to force people to sit for half an hour when you could have just shared a Google Doc. Do not use them so that you can talk, and you have to watch everyone sitting there listening. That is a waste of everyone's time. If you have an announcement, make an announcement. If you have a video, share it with people. They can watch it whenever they want it, double speed. Don't try to be a manager enforcing authority in this space in real time. Instead, get really clear about what part of your job is management, which is getting what you need because you have power, versus what part is leadership, which is helping other people become who they can be as contributors. They're different things. And get your management straight and be clear with people about what that is, right? And then when it's time to be a leader, figure out how to engage with people, even if you're not in the room, that isn't based on your authority, because leadership is voluntary. It's voluntary for you to decide to lead. It's voluntary for people to decide to follow. These are choices. Let's make them on purpose. Cramming a real life day in the office into a Zoom call doesn't help anybody. Instead, we have this magical moment to give people freedom and leverage to make things better. So with that, I'm going to log off. Thank you for all the work you're doing. To everyone on this call.
Absolutely. We so thank you. You blessed us today. You blessed us today. Until next time, everyone, peace and blessings. Bye-bye for now.